I want to tell you about something that happened in my clinic last Tuesday that changed the way I think about what we were doing to ourselves, or rather, what we're not doing to ourselves. An 82-year-old woman came to see me. Let's call her Margaret. Margaret's daughter brought her in because she was convinced her mother had dementia. She's confused, she falls, she can't remember where she put things, she's irritable. Doctor, I think we're losing her. And I looked at Margaret, and Margaret looked back at me with these clouded eyes, and I did what I always do. I asked about her medications, her sleep, her diet. Then I asked the question that nobody thinks matters, Margaret, how much water are you drinking? She looked at me like I'd asked her to recite the periodic table. Water? I don't know. A glass? Maybe? I drew her blood. Do you know what I found? She wasn't losing her mind. She was desperately, dangerously dehydrated. Her sodium levels were through the roof. Her kidneys were screaming. Her brain, that magnificent 3-pound universe inside her skull, was literally shrinking away from the inside of her skull because there wasn't enough fluid to maintain its cushioning. 1 week later, after we got fluids into her and taught her how to drink properly, Margaret came back. Different person. Sharp, alert, laughing. Her daughter cried. I almost cried. Now here's what nobody tells you about getting older. Your body becomes a liar. When you're young, your body screams at you when you're thirsty. That alarm system is loud, insistent, impossible to ignore. But as we age, that alarm gets quieter and quieter until it's practically whispering. By the time you're 70, 80 years old, your thirst mechanism is so blunted that you can be severely dehydrated and feel absolutely nothing. Nothing. Your body has stopped warning you that you're in danger. And we wonder why our elderly population is falling, fracturing hips, ending up with urinary tract infections, getting confused, landing in emergency rooms. We pathologize aging, we medicalize it, we throw pills at it. But sometimes, and I mean this, sometimes the solution is so simple it feels like an insult to modern medicine. Drink water. Let me tell you what dehydration does to the aging brain. Every single cognitive function, memory, attention, processing speed, decision-making, depends on adequate hydration. Your brain is 73% water. When you don't drink enough, your brain cells literally shrink. The electrochemical signals that allow your neurons to communicate slow down. It's like trying to send emails through dial-up internet in the age of fiber optics. Everything takes longer. Everything gets garbled. You start looking like you have dementia when really, you're just thirsty. But it gets worse. Your kidneys, those incredible filtration systems that have been working every single second of your life since before you were born, they need water to flush out toxins. Without it, those toxins build up. Medications you're taking, they become more concentrated, more dangerous. Your risk of kidney stones skyrockets. Urinary tract infections become almost inevitable. And those UTIs, in elderly people, they don't just cause burning when you urinate, they cause delirium, confusion, falls, hospitalizations. Your heart needs water. When you're dehydrated, your blood volume drops. Your heart has to work harder to pump that thickened blood through your vessels. Your blood pressure drops when you stand up, orthostatic hypotension, and boom, you're on the ground with a broken hip. One moment of not drinking enough water, compounded over days and weeks, and you've just altered the entire trajectory of your remaining life. Here's what breaks my heart. We live in a society absolutely drowning in dopamine hits. We have engineered a world that gives us instant pleasure at every turn. Sugar, salt, fat, screens, pills, alcohol, and we've gotten very, very good at pursuing those hits. But water, plain, boring, life-giving water, we've forgotten how to drink it. We've made it unsexy. We've replaced it with coffee, tea, juice, soda, all the things that actually dehydrate us further or come loaded with sugars that wreak havoc on our aging bodies. And here's the addiction medicine piece that people don't see. When you're chronically dehydrated, your body starts craving quick energy. So you reach for sugar, you reach for caffeine, you reach for simple carbohydrates, and those things give you a spike, a fast hit of energy, but then you crash. And in that crash, you're more dehydrated than before, and the cycle continues. You're stuck in a dopamine-seeking loop where you're trying to fix a water problem with a sugar solution. The elderly patients I see, they're not just dehydrated. They're trapped in patterns that are killing them slowly. They wake up, they have coffee. Coffee is a diuretic, it makes them urinate more. They don't replace that fluid loss. By noon, they're tired, so they have more coffee, maybe a cookie. More dehydration. They don't drink water because they don't want to get up to use the bathroom multiple times. They're afraid of falling, afraid of incontinence, afraid of the inconvenience. So they restrict fluids. And that restriction becomes a death spiral. Let me give you the numbers, because numbers don't lie. Older adults should be drinking roughly 6 to 8 cups of fluid per day, about 1.5 to 2 liters. But studies show that up to 40% of elderly people are chronically underhydrated. 40%! We're talking about millions of people walking around in a state of cellular drought, and we're treating the symptoms, the confusion, the falls, the infections, instead of the cause. Now, I want to talk about solutions, because this is where it gets empowering. This is where you take back control. First, you need to understand that waiting until you're thirsty is too late. If you're over 65, your thirst mechanism is unreliable. You need to drink on a schedule. Set alarms on your phone. Put a glass of water on your nightstand and drink it first thing in the morning before you do anything else. Get one of those big water bottles with time markers on the side. Yes, the ones the young people use at the gym. And use it. Track your intake like your life depends on it, because it does. Second, make water interesting. I know it sounds ridiculous, but if plain water bores you, add lemon, add cucumber, add a splash of juice, whatever it takes to get fluid into your body. Eat water-rich foods, watermelon, cucumbers, oranges, soups, broths. Every bit counts. Third, address the bathroom fear. I know this is real, but here's the truth. The more dehydrated you are, the more concentrated your urine becomes, which actually irritates your bladder and makes incontinence worse. Drinking more water, counterintuitively, can actually improve bladder control over time. And if you're afraid of falling on the way to the bathroom at night, get a bedside commode, get night lights, get whatever you need to make it safe, because restricting fluids is not the answer. Fourth, reduce the things that work against you. If you're drinking 6 cups of coffee a day, cut it down. For every cup of coffee or caffeinated tea, drink an additional glass of water. If you're on medications that are diuretics, and many blood pressure medications are, you need to be even more vigilant about fluid intake. Talk to your doctor. Ask if your medications are affecting your hydration status. And here's the thing that I want you to really hear. This isn't about perfection. This is about progress. This is about recognizing that our modern world has disconnected us from the most basic human need, drinking water, and reconnecting with that need is an act of radical self-care. Margaret's story didn't end with her recovery. It ended with her teaching her entire senior center about hydration. She became evangelical about it. She started a water club where everyone would meet and drink a glass of water together, check in on each other, hold each other accountable. And you know what happened? Fall rates at that center dropped. Emergency room visits dropped. People reported feeling sharper, sleeping better, having more energy. One simple intervention. Water. This is the paradox of modern medicine and modern life. We have created unbelievable complexity. Artificial intelligence, genetic sequencing, immunotherapies that cure cancer, and yet we're dying from not doing the simplest thing humans have done for millennia, drinking clean water. So I'm asking you, what are you going to do today? Are you going to wait until your body whispers that maybe, possibly, you might be thirsty? Or are you going to take that glass, fill it with water, and drink it, and then do it again in 2 hours, and again after that? Because here's what I've learned after decades of treating addiction and seeing what happens when people disconnect from basic human needs in pursuit of artificial highs. The path back to health, to clarity, to vitality isn't always through more medications, more interventions, more technology. Sometimes the path back is through less, through simplicity, through returning to what our bodies have always needed. Water is not sexy. It's not exciting. It won't give you a dopamine rush, but it will keep your brain working. It will keep your kidneys filtering. It will keep your heart pumping efficiently. It will keep you standing upright instead of lying in a hospital bed wondering what happened. So drink. Drink like your life depends on it, because it does. I need you to understand something that's going to sound absolutely insane. Your body, this incredible machine that has kept you alive for 70, 80, 90 years, has started lying to you. Not in some metaphorical way, I mean literally physiologically lying. When you were young, thirst hit you like a freight train. You'd be playing, working, living your life, and suddenly your body would scream at you, "Drink now." That signal was loud, undeniable, impossible to ignore. But here's what nobody warns you about aging. That alarm system degrades. By the time you're in your 70s, that once deafening alarm has become a whisper. By 80, it might be completely silent. You can be sitting in your living room, severely dehydrated, your cells crying out for water, your blood thickening, your brain shrinking, and you'll feel absolutely nothing. No dry mouth, no urgent need, nothing. This is why elderly people end up in my clinic looking like they have dementia when really they're just desperately thirsty. Their children bring them in terrified, convinced they're losing their parent to Alzheimer's, and I run the labs and discover their sodium is sky high, their kidneys are struggling, their brain is literally pulling away from the inside of their skull because there's not enough fluid cushioning it anymore. And the person sitting in front of me has no idea. They're confused, they're falling, they're irritable, they can't remember where they put their keys, and everyone assumes it's age, it's inevitable decline, it's dementia. But sometimes it's just thirst that the body forgot how to signal. This silent crisis is happening in millions of homes right now. People are restricting fluids because they don't want to get up to use the bathroom at night. They're afraid of falling. They're worried about incontinence. So they stop drinking, and their body, that traitor, doesn't sound the alarm. And day by day, week by week, they get more dehydrated, more confused, more unstable. The falls increase, the UTIs start, the emergency room visits pile up. And we treat everything except the root cause because nobody thinks to ask the simplest question: how much water are you actually drinking? Stop waiting to feel thirsty. That's the first rule of staying alive as you age. Your thirst mechanism is unreliable, broken, defunct. You need to drink on a schedule now, like taking medication, set alarms, put glasses of water everywhere. Track it like your life depends on it, because it genuinely does. The body you trusted for decades to tell you what it needs has gone silent on the most basic need of all. Your brain is 73% water. Let that sink in for a moment. Nearly 3/4 of that magnificent organ that holds every memory you've ever made, every person you've ever loved, every skill you've learned, it's made of water. And when you don't drink enough, something terrifying happens. Your brain cells shrink. I'm not being metaphorical, I mean they physically contract, pulling away from each other, reducing the space for electrochemical signals to jump between neurons. Imagine trying to have a conversation across a widening canyon. That's what's happening in your brain when you're dehydrated. Every cognitive function you have depends on adequate hydration. Memory formation needs water. Attention span needs water. Processing speed, decision-making, emotional regulation, all of it requires your brain cells to be plump, full, properly hydrated. When they're not, everything slows down. Signals get garbled, information gets lost. You start forgetting names, losing words mid-sentence, walking into rooms with no idea why you're there. And everyone around you starts whispering about dementia, about cognitive decline, about how maybe it's time to think about assisted living. But here's what absolutely breaks my heart as a physician. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes that cognitive decline is completely reversible. I've seen patients come into my clinic who look like they're in the early stages of Alzheimer's. Their families have already started grieving the person they're losing. We run comprehensive labs, and the culprit isn't plaques and tangles in the brain, it's severe dehydration. We get fluids into them, we teach them how to maintain proper hydration, and within a week, they're back, sharp, present, making jokes, remembering details. Their brain wasn't dying, it was drowning in drought. The tragedy is how many people never get that simple intervention. They get shuffled into memory care facilities, put on expensive medications with terrible side effects, watched carefully for worsening symptoms, all while the solution might be as simple as drinking 6 glasses of water a day. We've become so sophisticated in our medical thinking that we've forgotten to check the basics. But dehydration doesn't just make you forgetful, it makes you vulnerable to everything else too. Those medications you're taking for blood pressure, for pain, for sleep, When you're dehydrated, they become more concentrated in your bloodstream, more dangerous, more likely to cause side effects. Your brain isn't just struggling with the dehydration itself, it's being poisoned by the very medications meant to help you, because there's not enough water to dilute them properly. Let me walk you through what happens when you don't drink enough water, because understanding the cascade is what makes this so urgent. It starts simple. You wake up, you skip water, maybe you have coffee instead. Coffee's a diuretic. It makes you urinate more than you drank, so now you're already in a deficit. By mid-morning, your blood volume has dropped slightly. Your body tries to compensate by pulling water from your cells. Your blood thickens. Your heart, that tireless muscle that's been beating since before you were born, now has to work harder to push that thicker blood through your vessels. Your blood pressure regulation gets wonky. You stand up from your chair, and normally your body would instantly adjust, tightening blood vessels, increasing heart rate to keep blood flowing to your brain. But when you're dehydrated, that adjustment doesn't happen fast enough. Your blood pressure drops, blood drains from your head, you get dizzy, lightheaded, and suddenly you're falling. Maybe you catch yourself, maybe you don't. Maybe you break your hip, and now we're talking about surgery, rehab, potential complications, loss of independence, all because you didn't drink water this morning. But it doesn't stop there. Your kidneys need water to filter waste from your blood. When there's not enough fluid, they can't flush out toxins effectively. Those toxins build up. Your kidney function declines. The medications you're taking, blood thinners, blood pressure pills, pain medications, they're all processed through your kidneys. When your kidneys are struggling, those medications accumulate, become toxic. Suddenly you're having side effects that seem mysterious, and your doctor adds another medication to treat the side effect, which adds more burden to your struggling kidneys, which are failing because you're not drinking enough water. Meanwhile, your concentrated urine is irritating your bladder and urethra. Bacteria love concentrated urine. It's like a breeding ground. You develop a urinary tract infection. In younger people, UTIs cause burning and urgency. In elderly people, UTIs cause confusion, delirium, agitation. Your family sees you acting strange and rushes you to the emergency room. They do a workup, find the infection, give you antibiotics, but nobody asks why you got the infection in the first place. It's the dehydration. It's always been the dehydration. This is the deadly domino effect. One missed glass of water leads to another, leads to thicker blood, leads to a fall, leads to kidney stress, leads to medication toxicity, leads to infection, leads to hospitalization. Each domino knocking over the next in a sequence that seems inevitable but is entirely preventable. Here's what addiction medicine has taught me that applies directly to hydration. When your body is in crisis, it doesn't always ask for what it needs. It asks for what gives the quickest relief. When you're chronically dehydrated, your cells are starving for energy. Everything's sluggish. Your metabolism has slowed down. Your brain is foggy. And your body, desperate for a quick fix, starts screaming for fast energy. So what do you reach for? Sugar, caffeine, simple carbohydrates, that cookie, that soda, that third cup of coffee. And here's the cruel trick. Those things work. For about 20 minutes, you get a spike. Your blood sugar jumps. You feel more alert. Your mood lifts slightly, but it's a false solution. The caffeine dehydrates you further. The sugar causes an insulin spike, followed by a crash that leaves you more exhausted than before. And in that crash, you're even more dehydrated, even more desperate, reaching for another hit of quick energy. You're stuck in a dopamine-seeking loop, pursuing artificial highs to solve a problem that has nothing to do with dopamine and everything to do with plain water. This is why I see elderly patients whose daily routine is coffee, maybe some juice, a soda with lunch, more coffee, and then they wonder why they're exhausted, confused, and unstable. They're living on stimulants and sugar, treating a water deficit with everything except water. And our culture reinforces this madness. We've made water boring. We've made it unsexy. We've replaced it with beverages that are marketed as more interesting, more flavorful, more beneficial, enhanced waters with vitamins, energy drinks with promises of vitality, sugary juices that claim to be healthy. But your body doesn't need any of that. It needs water, plain, boring, life-giving water. The solution is absurdly simple but requires you to break the addiction cycle. You need to drink water on a schedule, 6 to 8 cups a day, spread throughout the day, regardless of whether you feel thirsty. For every cup of coffee or caffeinated tea, add an extra glass of water to compensate for the diuretic effect. If plain water bores you to tears, fine. Add lemon, add cucumber, add a tiny splash of juice. Whatever it takes to get the fluid into your body. But understand that every time you reach for sugar or caffeine instead of water, you're deepening the deficit. You're feeding the wrong system. Your body is asking for hydration, and you're giving it stimulation. And that gap between what you need and what you're getting is killing you slowly, day by day, dehydration by dehydration. We live in an age of medical miracles. We can sequence your genome. We can transplant organs. We can cure cancers that were death sentences 20 years ago. We have artificial intelligence reading X-rays better than radiologists. We've engineered medications that can lower your cholesterol, thin your blood, regulate your heart rhythm, manage your diabetes. And yet, people are ending up in emergency rooms, confused and falling and sick because they're not drinking water. Let that absurdity sink in. We've created this incredible complexity, layers upon layers of interventions and technologies and pharmaceuticals, while people suffer from the most basic, ancient, primal deficit imaginable. The solution isn't expensive. It doesn't require a prescription. It doesn't need insurance approval. It's free from your tap. And yet it's the last thing we think about. I had a patient, Margaret, who came in looking like she was sliding into dementia. Her daughter was devastated, already planning for memory care, already grieving the loss of the mother she knew. We ran labs, severe dehydration. We got fluids into her, taught her how to maintain hydration, and 1 week later she was back to herself. Sharp, present, laughing. But here's where it gets beautiful. Margaret didn't just fix herself and move on. She got angry. She got evangelical. She started a water club at her senior center. Literally just a group of elderly people who would meet daily, drink a glass of water together, check in on each other's intake, hold each other accountable. No complicated protocols, no expensive equipment, just people helping people remember to drink water. And the results were stunning. Fall rates at that center dropped. Emergency room visits decreased. People reported better sleep, more energy, clearer thinking. One simple intervention, water. This is the radical simplicity revolution I'm talking about. It's radical because in our world of complexity, choosing simplicity is an act of rebellion. It's radical because it requires no doctor, no prescription, no insurance company approval. It's radical because it puts power back in your hands, literally the hand that lifts the glass to your mouth. You don't need to wait for medical advances. You don't need to hope for breakthrough treatments. You need to fill a glass with water and drink it. Then do it again in 2 hours. This isn't about perfection. You're going to forget sometimes. You're going to get busy. But progress beats perfection every single time. Start today, right now. Drink a glass of water. Set an alarm for 2 hours from now. Put water bottles in every room. Make it unavoidable. Make it your mission, because the alternative is watching your health decline, your mind fog over, your independence slip away, all while the solution was sitting in your kitchen the entire time.